Food for I mean, yeah, it's kind of yeah, I get what you mean. Trying to get that open face. I mean, you're already
Yeah, I
in.
thought it might. I decided it probably wasn't worth the risk to go. Better to be a bit stubborn and have like
Yeah,
blood going down my chin.
yeah, I know. Anyway, we're recording now, so yeah, I
Awesome.
think everything's on. Yeah, cool. So to introduce ourselves, welcome to the hospitality chat. My name is Mehdi Rahman, and my friend here, Matthew Drummond-Poynter, and we're right here today for the second episode, and I think we'll try to keep the momentum going. And what better to have something motivational than photography, and that's what it is. I mean, the role of photography in restaurant promotion. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that's a topic close to your heart as a media student.
a media student, but also as a hobby because, yeah, I mean, sorry, it's like little adjustments we always have. I mean, yeah, I've been enjoying photography like from whenever when I'm growing up, my uncle does photography as well as when I look at other people's photos or even seeing out from everyday life, when you look at the streets here, when you look at a particular way, you're thinking that would have been a really cool shot. And because of this, I end up having a look at composition. And composition is so important in filming, television, or photography, or any form of artistic medium where how you compose everything, how you place everything is key to how you frame a shot or how you represent something in a particular angle. And I think that's always important. And photography is becoming much more of a popular form of hobby, or if not, a form of career and pastime. Also, even as like a social activity in the form of social media presence.
Absolutely. I've got some relatives who do photography as kind of a bit of a hobby that they do, and there's all kinds of little photographers meetups. They do little challenges and such like things to take a picture of for this particular month. And yeah, I think generally speaking, it's becoming increasingly popular, particularly, of course, online nowadays. Posting pictures on more dedicated social media platforms like Instagram or Snapchat,
Yeah,
for examples, of course, extremely popular nowadays. Um, and yeah, I think there's a lot out of this actually that restaurants can really pay attention to. And in fact, they already kind of are, really, aren't they? Because generally speaking, when we search around for restaurants nowadays, it's hard to find a site where there isn't like photos posted or a social media page where photos aren't posted, and not without good reason. I think we briefly touched on shortening attention spans last time, but the
yeah,
average viewer, for those who didn't see it, basically scrolls through their feed and they might spend about maybe 5 or 6 seconds looking at a post or whatever. They might leave a like on it and then they might move on. And pictures are kind of ideal for this particular kind of format because, well, of course, you can look at a picture, decide if you like it or not. Click a like or a share if you're so inclined, and yep, go on with your day. And for that reason, it's a really good way of driving engagement.
exactly. With driving the engagement side of it. I mean, because there's so many like groups, like forum groups, societies, even like with photography, like even on using even keywords, especially with in relation to our last episode with websites, the use of website in promotion, keywords including like photography, food photography, or like when you're trying to show your menu items, like we talked about before, photography becomes such a more important key to nowadays because we eat with our eyes than what we actually ingest to our bodies. Sometimes the culinary battle in a sense is won through your eyes, not through the actual taste of the dish itself. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. When you like look at something and looks particularly good, that kind of sets your expectations going, right? It
Yeah.
decides what you eat in certain cases. Like if
Yeah.
I'm looking at a menu and I see something that looks particularly interesting, even if I'm not particularly, it's not a kind of cuisine that I'm particularly aware of, so I don't really know what dish is what. The pictures actually really come in handy there for guiding and working out what I would kind of enjoy. Um, and yeah, and in regards to keywords, actually, of course, it, by attaching certain words to your images and the pages in which your images are at, of course, that puts them at a higher ranking, just the same as you might for your website or something like that. Use SEO to put it higher up in that index. For those so inclined, there's some really nice free tools for this. Keywords.io and Google Keywords being particularly good ones. You can kind of just plug the URL of your website in there or any particular words that you're looking to search around, and they'll recommend some decent words that viewers are searching up, let you know how competitive they are and so on. But what's really nice about pictures actually is this also puts you on Google Images rather than just Google.
Yeah.
And that's often kind of a bit of a less competitive kind of market, if you wanted to put it like that. So yeah, it's kind of another way to get your restaurant to the top of those search indexes by using careful use of SEO.
SEOs, but also like with social media like management in terms of like looking at say socials and stuff like Instagram accounts or Facebook or Snapchat as well. You know, when utilizing these platforms, keywords are equally important as well. You know, when you're trying to tag your posts or trying to tag what keywords in relation to your posts. Like for me, for example, whenever I do like a gaming photography, this is like even photography itself is becoming, you know, wide, and it's becoming more widened out to even taking photos in the virtual space as well through say photography mode in games, for example. I'm taking it as like an example, like anything related to gaming, photography, or both together, you tag as many in relation to it, and anyone who's looking in reference to both tags or anything related to what your photo is about, yeah, or as well as maximizing on current popular trends, yeah, it would increase the traffic to get into your post because more people who have done more posts on it. It's also trying to set yourself apart from other people and expanding your reach as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess a particular tag that restaurants should probably be keeping an eye on is the food photography tag. Of course, extremely popularized by how popular it is nowadays on Instagram and Snapchat to take pictures of your food and kind of show them off, to look what I'm eating. But it also means that it's a very popular tag for restaurants to stick pictures of their own food under, which can kind of get some of that incidental traffic going back and forth.
I mean, that's really common as well. When you look at it's almost becoming like a very set of norms and values of society. I mean, not value, but it has that social currency as well as it's becoming like a norm in society. I don't know if it's whether it's a good norm or a bad norm because, you know, considering, you know, it's, you know, because how oversaturated we are in as a society being warped into the digital age in a sense, this oversaturation, you kind of feel it when you look at when the food comes into every single table, the immediate thing you see is like kind of doing this. And it's so common as well. It's actually what it is. It's like, can you imagine you end up seeing a photo, it's like, I was like thinking, I know you, and honestly, the dishes themselves, you know, the representation of the dishes look amazing, and I can agree. But sometimes I always feel like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, I'm not trying to downplay the role of photography, but it's an interesting observation, I think. But I think it's also that observation is also key to understanding, you know what? Taking these pictures and posting on social media has that kind of sense of luxury to the dishes that you have in accordance to the place, and also increasing the popularity of places if customers, you know, take their time to, you know, take a picture of their food and release on social media. And I think restaurants could use that to their advantage and for their promotion is if you guys are posting this on social media or anything like that, this is our Instagram account and this is our social media account. Be sure to post it under our name and tag.
Absolutely, yeah, that's kind of a common thing you see nowadays actually in some parts of Instagram. Some people will like take pictures of like their food in certain like restaurants. I think chains in particular, you see this one. And sometimes the chain will like pop a like or pop a comment or something somewhere on there. And that kind of is nice, you know, because not only are you kind of using that as an opportunity to kind of expand your reach in terms of like you can use their photography to kind of do your advertising, but also it kind of really helps kind of with community outreach, you know. It's like it's good marketing to kind of like not seem so completely distant and unapproachable, but hey, you're here, you're participating in the same kind of fun taking pictures as everyone else, and hey, you're here chatting with everyone else, makes you feel, you know, a bit closer to everyone.
I mean, corporations are incorporating this kind of close connectivity with the audience, especially like, for example, when I was at the O2 Arena, I was basically taking some pictures, like because how amazing it looks, the arena and everything at North Greenwich. So I kind of was walking about as well because I had the dinner with my family, and I took some shots around the O2, but I had like the shot of the almost that kind of screen. It's on my Instagram account. I'll probably ask Daniel to put into the edits, later on, Yeah, be sure to check this out, man. I mean, but yeah, I took a picture of in the O2 Arena. I posted on social media account. I also tagged the O2 for it because it's their space, their kind of front. It's their kind of like the public space that they open for the public. Their corporate space, if you call it, and it's like that screen that kind of has these advertisement screens, almost similar to like the Excel moving digital advertisements you see on the roads, but it's kind of like on that circular, almost like spherical kind of atmosphere. And I took a shot of it, and I kind of tagged it the future. It kind of has that futuristic, almost like cyberpunkish kind of vibes to it, with the glow that is almost kind of spilling over to the buildings across, or the restaurant across us, and the composition would look so cool. And even they kind of gave me a like after the photo, like you say, they kind of liked my proposal. It's kind of like, it felt like such a, in a way, it's like marketing for corporations are becoming much more closer to the consumers themselves. And it's not so distant from being like the facelessness of the company, but it's like they're trying to be more closer and closer through friendly social media interaction, which was also key when we talked about reviews, like having that friendly interaction between your customers, consumers, and trying to build that connectivity with the community that you're working with. And in this case, for the O2, it was London, the guests from London and beyond, and also the restaurants, their communities that they're serving in the area.
Yeah, no, I think that marketing in as a tool of marketing, yeah, it's, as you say, it's very important. Particularly as I briefly mentioned earlier, it's kind of these platforms, Snapchat and Instagram, these social media platforms are heavily reliant on image posting. In fact, I believe Snapchat pretty much won't let you do just text-based posts. So we all know the famous take a picture of a black surface. But yeah, no, and as a result, these platforms are kind of off bars for you, unless you kind of go over more into kind of the photography side of things, or theoretically you could upload pictures of anything, but you're a restaurant and you have an access to presumably some form of camera, and you have access to your food and restaurant's decor. So why not make use of it? I mean, it's free content that you're leaving on the door there, and it would give you access to a whole new, these two massive social media presences, which in particular are heavily used by kind of millennials and younger people, which is kind of a demographic that you can get some access to on platforms like Facebook, but for the most part they aren't really there, which kind of opens your demographics, and you can really like increase your profits by kind of expanding your customer base in this particular fashion.
I mean, that is also key, but sometimes even with having simple as a social media account and a camera and also your decor, it's all about how you use it is what is very important, especially with technique as well. And I think with restaurant owners, how to utilize it, sometimes they would even go to an expert or look into other examples of other restaurants who have better success of managing and using social media to their advantage. And I think also what I would say that would help owners really is to really get grasp of the basics, like something simple as composition, because even if you have the worst camera or a camera that is of average ability, sometimes your composition could make that difference, if that makes sense. And I'll give like some of my camera and my shots, for example, like whether it's from being in Liverpool Street or being in, say, that one of the tallest skyscrapers of London, or being on the ground level, just looking around and everything. Sometimes your composition, what makes it count. And I think it's all about having that outreach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of some other generally good photography tips to keep in mind when you're doing these kinds of things, I guess lighting would be a key one actually. Often a perfectly good picture can be completely ruined by not having adequate lighting. So you absolutely want to make sure that the picture is well lit so that whatever you happen to be focusing on at that particular moment, your customers will be, or viewers, I guess in this case, will be able to see everything that you actually want them to see. Though obviously with food photography in particular, this one can get a bit weird because sometimes heavy lighting can cause the food to like warm up, something might
Yeah.
melt and such like. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're doing your lighting.
I mean, a lot of ads. I remember when I was looking at behind the scenes stuff, photography. Some would use like say glue, but mix it up with coloring, like say to make chocolate. So that way, if it or using say other substitute, inedible substitutes, while to mimic the items that they're creating. But like when you look at the difference between the real thing and then a fake version using inedible substitutes to basically recreate the same menu items, say like ice cream, for example, trying to recreate ice cream, but because of the strong lighting that photo studios would have, they will melt immediately as time will go by. So therefore, it's all about like race against the time. But whereas if you have say other substitutes as well, you can able to recreate it from scratch or having these insane techniques. And also with like camera as well, when you talked about equipment and techniques as well, like with average cameras, like for example, for me, I always like using DSLR cameras like this one, but it's a little bit outdated, mind you, but it does the job with additional lenses. But for example, sorry, this is like a wide angle lens, like that's often used for films, but I like to use wide angle lenses because you get like a full frame of the scene that you want to take. But if you want to take more close-up shots, I think people would use more zoomed into like say like a standard 80 to 55 millimeter, but really go with the 55 millimeter. But to decrease the tremors that you have with your hand because you're constantly shaking, would use a tripod as well as. And also when you talked about the lighting as well, the problem with lighting as well is sometimes your camera settings, because often when professionals would use manual, or say people who not have experience would use automatic. When using automatic, it will automatically go to the most best settings that the camera would find depending on the scene that you're taking. But the problem what I would have with that is it would often look a bit too overly contrast. It's heavily contrasted in the shots where it becomes too bright and the colors are too overexposed. And sometimes I kind of like to mess around with the settings, you know, with the aperture, like the f scale and whatnot, trying to make sure everything, all your sensitivity with your ISO, trying to figure out which way it works. And it's all about tinkering with your camera settings is like the best way to learn, as well as the best way to understand it, how much light goes into the lens or how much light is shut off entirely from the lens. It's kind of taking things into account. I think it's all about understanding, using and experimenting with your camera.
And of course, some restaurant owners may, I guess, not necessarily have access to kind of these particular like cameras and stuff. Obviously, there's a few avenues you could go down with that one. You could rent it, perhaps, rent the relevant equipment that you need. Particularly useful if you know you would need like a wide angle to get a shot of your restaurant, and then another day you need to get a close of your food. But also, I guess some people might be tempted to use their phones as well, though the quality could be a bit shaky.
I mean, phones are the most perfect way. I mean, nowadays, a lot more phones are becoming more, a lot of more developers and designers for phones understand the importance of photography, and they're implementing more and more powerful cameras or including more settings, as well as trying to accommodate a lot of the photography companies such as Nikon and Canon, looking to examples of what they do with their cameras and trying to implement some of their settings or the techniques that they put into the cameras and trying to implement that to a mobile phone. I mean, a lot of my posts that I do on social media come from my phone a lot of the time when I'm, say, going out in central London, when I take a shot of, say, Piccadilly Circus or, I mean, Piccadilly Circus, there was my latest shot that I took from when I was out and about was in Piccadilly Circus, and it's like a black and white shot. I mean, obviously for my style, I kind of turned daylight shots into black and white from now on. It's more of like a stylistic choice, but as I was looking into that, rather than putting as a color, it looks a bit pointless, but putting as like a black and white. And the irony is when you look at it is has the Samsung ad in the screens, and I was using a Samsung phone to take the shot. So it's kind of like that it's almost like the sense of irony, which is kind of cool. But I think mobile phones are really like even a better substitute to at times. Not for everything, but sometimes it is better to use a mobile phone than to use a DSLR at times. It depends on the situation. I mean, videoing wise, you would use a DSLR or something equivalent or more powerful. But mobile phones, in case you can't afford a camera, sometimes mobile phones do the trick. I mean, the latest models of mobile phones, like the latest iPhones or the latest Samsungs, Androids or whatever, they do the same power, the same trick as some DSLRs.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, I guess we have all those food posting pictures to thank for the increased demand for better cameras on phones, actually. Um,
Yeah,
in regards to other things that I guess depend on the situation, actually, I should probably talk about camera angles for a few seconds. Because, of course, certain foods will generally look better at certain angles if you're going to take pictures of your food and such like.
yeah.
For example, needless to say, if you try and take a side-along shot of a pizza, you just kind of get like this flat disc. Can't really
You
make
not
much
can't
out
see
of
what's
it.
on the top of it.
Yeah.
It's all depending on the food items themselves. Some items will be better at say like say the food items here. Sometimes it's better at a very almost like an equal height and equal length. But some shots like a pizza, for example, it's better to do like an overhead shot of of the pizza itself because you want to see what's on top as well as, and it's also better to, and also some people do this, some people don't, but it's better to when you, as much as you do the best photo that you could take in production, sometimes it's better to clean up your photos through post-production efforts.
On the topic of post-production, actually, of course, I guess we've got to breach the controversial one. Of
Well,
course, there's an increased popularity of using Photoshop and other enhancing means. We've already touched on a few methods that you can use substitutes that are perhaps more photogenic or better photo quality
I
than other
know.
stuff. But of course, there's a bit of a kind of debate on this one as to how inauthentic it might make the whole thing go. Now, I personally think that most pictures on the internet are to some level image enhanced anyways. Even users do this. I mean, Snapchat filters and such like are used all the times, but it's certainly something that I think a business may want to keep in mind when enhancing their pictures to some extent, because
Yeah,
obviously there's a certain level of enhancement that's fine, but if consumers come in and your food literally looks nothing like your
like
images whatsoever, I can imagine you're probably going to get a bit of a reputation and they might leave some bad reviews. And a bad review is just, it's not worth the
yeah,
short term gain you might get from the good
yeah.
picture.
I mean, we talked about the last time. A bad review can turn off like like 9 out of 10 customers. You know,
Yeah.
and it does happen. I mean, when it comes to enhancing your photos, like Photoshop, or I mean, Photoshop such a it's a bit of a controversy with some businesses because there's a particular you can enhance pictures no doubt, but there has to be like a limit to it. It's a line you don't cross with that, I think, because you want to, again, like you say, authenticity is much more appreciated more than it is right now in society. I mean, when I look at it from like a social standpoint of society, I think lies are becoming much more bigger and much not bigger. I mean, it's becoming more accepted than the truth. So authenticity is what people want, and I want to see something very authentic. It's like I don't like someone to like say completely kind of put the wall over my eyes and try to say, oh, that's what is really authentic or whatnot. I just want something that is honest. If someone who says this is our take on it, like like a and oh, sorry about that.
So good.
Yes. Yeah, so it's kind of about authenticity. I mean, I want to see something very authentic. Someone's like at least want to show honesty. Honestly, something that is so how do I say it? It's so rarely needed. I mean, it's so needed because it's so rare because you hardly hear any honesty from other figures, like important figures as well. Like, and I think when you look at it from like a very basic standpoint, by I mean, it's nothing wrong cleaning up and polishing up your pictures, like maybe increasing exposure here or add little tiny contrast, basically trying to mimic of what you see of the picture to be in real life, because sometimes not all pictures come out the same way as you do in real life. And you want to add some kind of like artistic flair to your pictures, and it's fair enough, but to alter an entire picture entirely because Photoshop has much more capabilities of altering the entire thing, yeah, it has to be careful to not mislead your customers, because misleading does tend to cause a bit of like a, it's almost like you're misleading your customers, and lying to your customers is a big no-no. It's almost like in terms of hospitality, so it's like a big no-no. You can't lie to your customers or mislead them. You have to be as authentic and real as you can. But there's nothing wrong with polishing yourself and keep yourself to a higher standard. And if anything,
Yeah.
it should be something that other employees should work up to. You want to make sure everything looks like that when you do your like for the cooks who are cooking, like this is the image, this is what we were looking up to, this is what we want to aim for. And it's something as simple as that. It could be either a good motivator for the employees and the chefs, or the the staff and everything, or it could be something is like excites people to come to your restaurant. But you've got to be careful to not mislead them. That's why I prefer using Adobe Lightroom, because all it does is fixes. You can fix up your, say, like the color temperature, or sharpening, or just basically doing the little retouches on your camera and your shots, like getting rid of any dirt or in your lens or something like that. You know, just for cleaning tools it has, or as well as increasing the contrast or exposure, or sharpening, or trying to make it kind of like as neat looking as it can, because sometimes raw pictures you want to also export them into JPEGs and so on and so forth, trying to make sure they're compatible to posting on social media or to the relative medium that you want to post it on. So
yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing here is enhance your pictures by all means, but keep those enhancements kind of subtle, and keep them to, like, just enhance it, make those colours pop, and generally just clean up the image, but try not to go a bit overboard. And I absolutely agree about the authenticity, because particularly as a lot of our clients at OrderPin are kind of like smaller single restaurants rather than like big old chains, and a lot of those restaurants kind of live or die based on kind of the appearance of authenticity, because when we go to our like local restaurant, it's not a chain or anything, we go in there kind of with the expectation of kind of authenticity, the kind of small diner experience. And yeah, no, I think maintaining that reputation is absolutely key to ensuring that you get kind of this loyal customer base. But now that we've got, I guess, these kind of great pictures, they look absolutely great, I guess we should kind of think about how to use them to some extent. And yep, so we've already kind of discussed how to use SEO to kind of make sure that you're searching up relevant keywords for a particular image or dish, I guess, in a lot of these cases, and make sure that that's the one that shows up in particular searches. But in other stuff, I guess it kind of comes back to like the concept of like your brand image in marketing, how your like restaurants kind of as a brand's kind of perceived by your customer base. And ideally speaking, your image should kind of like reinforce the kind of brand image that you want, rather than, I don't know, go at odds with it. So I don't know, let's say if you're like a fancy fine dining restaurant, then your image should kind of look kind of elegant, classy. Meanwhile, I don't know, if you're kind of like more kind of greasy spoon diner or a bistro or something like that, I guess you're kind of looking for more like a simple, hearty, down to earth, that kind of vibe.
yeah,
And if I mix that particular message by doing, I don't know, a fancy picture for a bistro, or like a greasy meal for a fine dining thing, it just wouldn't work, right? I mean, your core customer base would be a bit confused and perhaps a bit perplexed, and it just mess things up completely.
It really reminds us when we were when we were looking into research of climate change and hospitality. Remember that burger place we went to, that vegan restaurant that we went to?
Oh,
Ah,
yes.
man, I could never forget that. I mean, I'm pretty sure like I have pictures of it, and it was just like, when you look at that, when looking at the packaging, this is, the food items themselves, they look absolutely amazing. And I'm sure I probably have sent it to you and a couple of others as well. Like, it's just, I don't know, when I took the shots as well, trying to film it, the way I was trying to film it, trying to kind of curve around it. I mean, with what I have as well. I mean, it was such a very nice, small, very well knit place here. And I probably will take some pictures or go back to that restaurant again, because the food, mind you, it was a little bit pricey, considering the area was Piccadilly, but but it was so, how we represented ourselves in the packaging, the food. It was like it can compete itself with smaller franchises. I mean, with bigger franchise, it can compete with bigger franchises like McDonald's and stuff. And I can completely would endorse that place if we could. And I think it was an example when we look at it. I'm like, we took pictures immediately as soon as we had the food. And it was like, wow, it looks so good. And when we took the pictures as well, it's like, this could be helpful for social media use. And I'm pretty sure if we could, we'd go back to that place. I think, what was the name of the place again? I'm trying to remember it. So it's like,
I think it was it Neat Burger? It might have been called Neat Burger, I can't remember. But I mean, while you're doing that, yeah, everything about that particular place kind of like reinforced kind of the same brand image, I guess. Like, you know, there was lots of green colors, which of course, connection to nature and environment, that kind of stuff. The place was very kind of like warm and friendly. There were like little factlets about how eco-friendly or cruelty-free the stuff was, and yeah, in general, just everything about that place was reinforcing one particular image, and as a result, that image was really powerful. And while I'm not, I guess, particularly in their core demographic, apart from that they had excellent food, I could really see like some more like environmentally conscious or particularly ethically concerned vegans really kind of falling in love with that particular kind of marketing strategy and brand image.
I found the place, Neat Burger in Soho.
That's the one.
Yeah, that was the one. It was really good place. I mean, when we went there, it had high reviews. When we were like researching as well, when we were trying to take pictures and stuff, we wanted to find a place that would kind of gain our attention and it could compete with other places that are very extremely uses animal products and whatnot. I mean, I know we're going off topic, but when we were taking pictures as well of it, it reminded me of that place when we were talking about, you know, trying to reinforce a brand image. And that was like Neat Burger's brand image when I took the shot. And it was a good example. I mean, it was like when we're talking about on personal experiences here right now, I think this is like something that I think owners should take in mind with photography. It's like the moment we set our eyes in it, that was like, you know, immediately what kind of like first contact is like that sense of excitement. And when we're taking our pictures as well, it was that set of excitement. Mind you, it was been a very long time since we had that gone to that place. So I feel like we should go sometime. I think. I mean, maybe when like the variant is kind of calmed down, die down a little bit. I mean, who knows? We might bring everyone else with us and we'll probably go and check it out. But it is a really good place, I think, considering. And hopefully, yeah, I think let's hope for more food photography because, you know, I mean, it's like with food videos, you just can't get enough of them, you know?
No, absolutely. Food videos alone are popping over YouTube, yeah, and photography is going good. I mean, humans, we're visual creatures at the end of the day, and I think if nothing else, our long conversation about Neat Burger and everything else kind of shows how instrumental pictures are in kind of winning over the emotional half of the human brain, and that goes a long way to tempting me to get a sale. I mean, we basically went into that place solely based on the visuals.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think if nothing else, that speaks powerful to the power of images on the human brain. I think that does, if nothing else.
I mean, we looked at the image on Google in the Google search and the Google review of it in Google Maps. I know a lot of Google, but when we looked at the images from Neat Burger's, you know, page, it looks really good. So I was like, we went there and we were impressed, and I think that's an great example about how photography can serve greatly to your promotion of your restaurant. And I think, I think that's the way to go about it.
Yep, absolutely. I am looking incredibly forward to seeing what wondrous visuals restaurants have in store for us next as we continue to see this kind of increasing trend towards photography becoming instrumental in people's marketing strategies. Feast for the eyes and the mouth.
I know. Man, I'm in the mood. I'm really in the mood now for Neat Burger.
The power of pictures, everybody.
Yes. And I think that's all the time we got for, I think, at the moment. So I think we're going to sign off right here. My name is Mehdi Rahman. This is my friend, Matthew Drummond-Poynter. And yeah, this is the Hospitality Chat podcast. And yeah, we'll see you soon.